time for us to begin our class, so if you could be coming on in and taking our seats, that'd be great. I'm substituting for Mike Windsor today. And so I want us to look at a few things today. And let's begin by going over to Luke 16. Let's begin by going over to Luke 16. Tonight's lesson is going to be on when the roll is called, as in when the roll is called up yonder. I've always liked and enjoyed that song, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. And so I want us to talk a little bit more expansively in the class session about what does happen once we die and how permanent that process is as far as our eternal destination. So, I don't think any of us here have already died, have we? Yeah. Maybe a time or two we may have thought that we were close to that. Maybe you've almost been there, somebody's brought you back physically. There are phrases that we use from time to time, you scared the life out of me, or somebody, or whatever. And so we might feel from time to time as if we have died, but we really haven't. And I'm glad for that. I'm glad that we're all here and things are good. But there are glimpses into what happens when we die. Now, when you're younger, you probably weren't touched by death in your family or by your friends for a number of years, or at least you didn't recognize that. I was very fortunate in life. I had, when I was born, I had all four of my grandparents, and I had one each of great-grandparents from each of their parents. I was very, very fortunate. I lost a great-grandmother when I was 2. I don't remember anything about her, but I've got her rocking chair that no doubt she rocked me in at some point, 63 years ago. Also then, I didn't lose another family member till I was in college. And then I lost a great-grandfather when I was in college. That's a pretty long time not to lose anybody. And then after that, we didn't really have any deaths, and then they started to come more quickly. And before you know it here, fast forward to now, and I'm the oldest in my bloodline, which doesn't make me feel very comfortable at all. I'm only 63. I shouldn't be the oldest of anything till I'm in my 80s. But now they're all gone. Now, when the first death started to happen, as a small boy, teenager, late teens, early 20s, you start to process those things and you start to realize other people have lost their relatives too. Other people have lost their great-grandparents or maybe never had them. Other people lost their parent or their grandmother or someone else. And so we come to grips with what death really is. And death is inevitable. Death is sometimes called an enemy. Sometimes it's called a friend. But death is going to happen to us unless Jesus comes back. It's going to happen. So the only two things that are sure in life are what? Death and taxes, right? You can cheat on your taxes, but you can't really cheat death. So the whole thing about death is we can pretty it up, we can push it off, we can ignore it as much as we can, but the sad reality is one day all of us are going to face that final moment. So not to be morbid or not to be overly dramatic, but are we going to be ready? Are we going to be ready for that time? I hope that all of us are. I'm going to be ready. I'm going to say that confidently, even though some days I may feel less ready than others. I'm going to be ready. I want you to be ready. But I don't want you to be fearful about the process, because the process is going to be one that ushers us into a new body, a new entity, and a new eternity. And I want us to be hopeful, and I want us to look positively into that process. So let's look at this account, the rich man and Lazarus, in Luke chapter 16. We'll begin here in verse 19. And let's use this as a jumping off point for us today. So there was a certain rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. But there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, full of sores, who was laid at his gate, desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And so it was that the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And being in torments in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And then he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and may cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and you are tormented. And besides all this, between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from there pass to us. And then he said, I beg you therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, that is, Lazarus. For I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment. Abraham said to him, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if one goes to them from the dead, they will repent. But he said to him, If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rise from the dead. All right, so we're all quite familiar with that passage there, the rich man and Lazarus. And I say we're all, aware of it, but not everyone is, even though it's in their Bibles. Some churches don't teach this. They don't want you to know about this because this gives a glimpse into what happens after we die. So, there may be some Hollywood depictions from time to time that we see about death and how death is handled. So you might see a Hollywood movie that depicts death, and you might physically see a spirit rising from the body as it goes up or as it goes down, right? Because, up is where? And down is where? It's the basement. It's the basement. That's where down is, and so we get these notions in our mind, right, about these different types of things. We also might see Hollywood depicting various elements of death, such as that aren't biblical. There were a couple of movies, remakes of movies about someone who it wasn't their time to die, so we have to go back and find another body for this person to live in and stuff, and a new identity and such. All that is fiction. All that is just make-believe and things in their life. Even one of my favorite movies, which is It's a Wonderful Life, depicts George Bailey wishing he had never been born, and Clarence, the angel second class, grants the wish, and he's able to see life as it would be without him ever being born. Ma Bailey has a boarding house now, and his wife is an old spinster and never marries, and all this type of stuff, right? He didn't realize how good his life was. All of that is concocted. It's all imaginary. It's all made up. But more people will watch Hollywood movies and will follow that as truth than they will to actually read the Bible and see what's going to happen. So as we talked about in the lesson this morning, as far as who am I, I'm created in whose image? We're all created in God's image. We're all given an eternal spirit. That spirit is not going to be recycled like Shirley MacLaine wants you to think. We're not reincarnated more and more times. And we don't come back as cows in India, if that's the highlight of our reincarnation. But instead, that one spirit is going to be for us, for all of our lifetime. When this lifetime is over, that one spirit goes on, and it's going to represent us, be us in eternity. So what do we really learn from the rich man and Lazarus? Okay? So what do you think are some of the main lessons that we learn from the rich man and Lazarus? What stands out to you?
The angels taking you to heaven.
I'm sorry, Paul?
Angels taking you to.
Okay, angels carried Lazarus to Abraham's bosom. Okay, what else? What stands out to us in this lesson? There are many lessons.
As soon as you die, you know where you're going to be.
Okay, as soon as you die, you're going to know where you're going to be.
You'll be able to recognize one another.
Okay, very good. You'll be able to recognize one another. What other clues or lessons do we learn from this?
He had 2 sisters that loved him.
Huh?
He had 2 sisters that loved him.
Well, that's a different Lazarus.
Oh, Lazarus.
Yeah, that's a different Lazarus, but you're on the right thing. Yeah. All right, so what else? What else do we learn?
That it's final. That it's final.
That it's final, right? There's no passing back and forth, right? Okay, so these are all good lessons. Let's start to go back through and see a few things. Do you think it matters any at all that the rich man and Lazarus were on different ends of the economic ladder? Does that have any bearing on where we go eternally?
No.
No. Okay. There are some people today in religious orders that think that if you take a vow of poverty or if you refuse anything good in this life, that you'll get better things in the next life. Okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with leading a simple life. There's nothing wrong with eating a very simple diet. But people would take that ascetic lifestyle to an extreme, as they did in the Middle Ages and other ages, and that's not really what God asks us to do. God has a lot of rich people that are His followers. When you read the Old Testament, a lot of His followers, Abraham for one, is a very wealthy man. So there's nothing wrong with having wealth. The problem is having wealth and not doing what? Yeah, and not keeping God in your plans. Luke also records Jesus in Luke chapter 12, the parable of the rich fool or the rich farmer, right, who had bumper crops. And he says, what am I going to do with all this? Well, I'm just going to hoard it all. That's all mine. Eat, drink, and be merry. Nothing wrong with having a bumper crop. Nothing wrong with tearing down your barns to build bigger barns. The whole idea of that, though, was that he wasn't right with God. And what's the only thing that matters? To be right with God right now, see? So if you're having a bumper crop and you're right with God right now, who cares who gets to sell the crop? You're going to be off in eternity. And as Carla reminded us, you're going to know immediately when you die which way you're going. So let's see what else we can learn from this. I don't think it does matter that the rich man and Lazarus were on different ends of the economic spectrum. It is a common theme, though, throughout the Bible, that it's more difficult for rich people to be pleasing to God than it is for poor people. So where do we go with that?
Put their trust in their money.
Put their trust in their money, okay?
In fact, they have no need of God.
Didn't Paul say that money is the root of all kinds of evil? Oh, context matters. Huh? The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Okay, so it is easier for a rich man to go through what? The eye of the needle than for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a what? Rich man to go to heaven. And so the whole thing is about your priorities and how you set these things right. Right? Is there anything wrong with having money in your pocket? No. Is there anything wrong with having a better house? No. Okay? What's the only thing that matters? Be right with God right now. That's the only thing that matters. Honor God with what you have. If you have little, honor God with that. Remember the widow's 2 mites, two coins that she put in. She put in more than anybody else. Why? She gave all that she had, right? She was very sacrificial. So look at those things and know those things as we go throughout life. Is life always fair? Do you always get good things when you act well? No. Do you sometimes get punished when you haven't done anything wrong? Yes. And if you don't know about that, come on Wednesday nights. We're studying Job. All right. So they both die. As Paul pointed out here in verse 22, Lazarus dies and he's carried where? By who? Carried to where Abraham was and carried by the angels. Now that to me is a very good thing to linger on, just thinking about that, the angels carrying them away. I've met with some people that work in hospice, and I've seen some other accounts of people, and they talk about, the last moment. Sometimes people will see others in the room. They're going through this. They have those experiences where they're, of course, nobody else is in the room. There's a delirium or something else going on. But what's going through the mind of the person that's about to die, right? They may not see Jesus, but they're going to see loved ones. They might see others. Now, does the Bible explicitly tell us if we're going to be able to see dead people before we die? Okay. Should that bother us that God didn't tell us that? Why? Deuteronomy 29:29, right? So we don't know everything, but what we do know is that God has told us some of these things that will happen. So, in torments, in Hades, the rich man lifts up his eyes, and he sees Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. So like Ruth told us, you're going to be able to recognize people in eternity. Now that, I think, is very important. I want to be able to recognize people in eternity. And I got to be honest with you, I want to see everybody I know in heaven. Everybody I know. Even my worst enemies. I want them in heaven as well. Because that means that they've changed their actions, they've made good with God, and they made it to heaven. I want to see everybody there.
That probably ain't going to
Probably ain't gonna happen, okay. Well, I hope to see everybody there anyway. All right, so what happens to us, right? Does the Bible say anything about us missing people in heaven, looking around and not seeing people that we expect?
We're not supposed to see
Former things will not come into mind.
See, these things aren't, so God's gonna have a sense of protection for us, right? So I can see people, and that's a good thing, but if somebody didn't make it, I don't necessarily know that they didn't make it, and I think that's a good thing as well. Yes?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when it's talking about how the rich man was remembering that he had brothers that hadn't believed,
Yes.
is that part of their like torment that they do remember those things?
That's a very good point, and we're going to get to that later, but I'll go ahead and deal with it now. Yes, I think that's a part of torment, because he's able to look over and see Lazarus being comforted. He recognizes Abraham, who he never met before, and he also remembers his brothers back on earth. So I think it would be a sense of torment to know that they're going to follow in his footsteps and come to the same place. I mean, we don't want people to follow us if we're going into a bad place, right? It's like the dad that told his son growing up, he says, son, never go to these bad places. You might see something you don't like, right? Well, as soon as the son was able to go into those bad places, he did. He went in and he did see something he didn't like. What was that? He saw his father there, right? You know the story. And so the idea is that, do as I say, not as I do, doesn't really fly, right? We need to do as God says. And that's what we need to do as well. There have been a lot of people spiritually that have been led astray because they just trusted in their parents or grandparents instead of trusting in God. Okay? My dad was a preacher, a very effective preacher. But when I was growing up, one of the challenges I had was trying to figure out, are we in the right church teaching the right things? And I was challenged as a younger person, person I was kind of debating with, says, well, you're only Church of Christ because your dad is. And I went back to my dad, just like he went back to his preacher dad, to load up for the next day's worth of arguments, and it said, how do I answer that? He said, well, are you? And I said, am I what? Are you just a member of the church because I'm a member of the church? What? How dare you ask me such a question? You're the preacher. You baptized me, right? What he was getting at is that your faith needs to be your faith. You need to work it out. You need to look. Now, not saying that there are multiple ways to get to heaven. It is that you need to see the scriptures yourself and be firmly convinced that this is your faith, not just the faith of your fathers. There are lots of things that our grandparents and others have done in the past that we might not hold to today because things change, right? Things change. Maybe your grandfather was a diehard Ford person or Chevy person or whatever else. And you don't have to honor that by always buying the same type of car, because the car manufacturers change over time. There might be a better option. But when it comes to religion, well, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
You know what I just thought?
I don't read your mind very often, so I don't know what you just thought. Yes, I know it's good to know.
Is that it never says that Lazarus noticed
The rich man.
it's.
Yes, that is true. It never says that Lazarus.
I think that's a part of the protection.
That's what we were talking about, touching on earlier, right? The rich man was able to look into paradise and see people there enjoying the rewards. Now, Abraham, obviously, is discussing this back and forth, but there's no note that Lazarus was able to see him. What do you think Lazarus' reaction would be if he did know that the rich man was in torments? He might want to go give him water. What else? We don't really know, right? Because, we don't know that that's going to happen. But we do recognize people. And, for years we've had people like from college and other places to say, well, when we all get to heaven, we're all going to the northwest corner or something. We'll all meet there. Well, you got an eternity to find everybody. You don't have to do it right away.
When the roll is going to be called.
Yeah. So I don't know how it's all going to be. All I know is what God has told us so far. So let's go on a little bit farther in this. All right. So the rich man is in torments, and so obviously he is not in a good place. And is this hell? No, it is not hell. This is in the Hadean realm. This is realm of departed spirits, right? So we're not yet to our final destination, but we know where we're going. We know where we're going. And so Lazarus is being comforted. He's not in heaven yet. He's being comforted there. And now this discussion goes on with Abraham. Son, you remember that in your lifetime, you received your good things, likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted and you are tormented. All right, now on the basis of that, let's go back and think. Now he's talking about Moses and the prophets. And so which era is Jesus talking about for this man to be living in? Which age? Mosaic, right? So we're talking about Mosaic age, law of Moses, following what God says to do in that. So it doesn't have anything to do with the good and bad things that we have. The implication here is that you were living either for God according to his ways or not. The verse before that, which I skipped over, unfortunately, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water, cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. Now, how much relief do you think that drop of water is going to provide? Not much. He didn't ask to be relieved from torment. He didn't ask to go where Lazarus was. What did he ask for? Just the bare minimum of any relief. So what does that tell us about our eternal destination if we're not right with God? You don't want to go there. Wanda was saying if Lazarus saw him, he would want to give water to him. That would be an act of what? Kindness or mercy, grace, right? Compassion, all those good words, not deserved, though, right? Because he didn't deserve any of that. So God is a very just God, but God is also a loving and forgiving God, right? How could a loving God send anyone to eternal torment? It's a question we have from time to time, yes.
God didn't send him.
God,
He sent himself.
okay, God didn't send him. The man found his own path from there. Paul, is that what you're going to say? Okay. So God doesn't send anybody to hell. God just opens the doors and lets you choose which path you're going to take. Those are very important concepts. Now, what kind of appeals process does the rich man have?
None.
None. There's always an appeal.
This guy not when he's in Hades.
Didn't he get out with no cash bail? No. You see what happens in our culture when you begin to erode the whole concept of right and wrong and punishments that are designed to be deterrents. When you take all the bad stuff away from bad actions, what do you end up getting? More what? More bad actions, right?
He probably had plenty of lawyers and judges there himself.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. I don't think we have any lawyers and judges as part of the congregation here. We do have people listening online.
I'm
So,
talking about his
so
court.
Richard, I will not comment on. I used to. I've got a good friend who's a lawyer now and from college, and I used to send him some lawyer jokes, and he never appreciated it. You know. Anyway, lawyers are good when you need them, and they're good for other people as well. So Lazarus is going to be comforted. We don't know if he has any recognition at all of the bad place or who's going to be there, and that goes in line too, because right in Revelation we're told that there's going to be no disease, no sickness, and no what in heaven? No tears. Right? So those things have passed away. No tears in heaven. But what if my parents aren't there? Are you going to know it?
You'll never know.
Might never know it.
But you wouldn't be happy if you did.
No, that's right. That's right. My parents were visiting us in Georgia one year, and they came down. And this was I don't know that we had cell phones back in that time. But anyway, they had driven the 8 hours to be down with us, and after they were there about a day, my dad gets a phone call. They chased him down and called, and his aunt had been killed in a car wreck. She was coming home from the beauty shop, and somebody hit her head on, and so she died. And so Dad had to go back then and do her funeral. Now, while he was there with us, Mom and Dad were there with us, and that wreck had happened, and we were going out to eat, they were doing whatever with, I don't even remember if we had the boys, right? So, you know, nobody knew that June had died. Did it affect any of us at all? Not in the least, because the news hadn't come to us. We were not aware. Now, the moment we became aware of that accident, guess what happened? There was sadness. And I'm so sorry for that. And we start to think in terms of what can I do and how can we comfort and give aid to the family and such like that. But in that moment, and for those 2 days or however long it was until they found out where Dad was and reached him down in our house, nobody knew. Now think of how many times in your life you've been able to enjoy something today without knowing that something tragic had already happened. I mean, it's almost impossible today because social media and everything else, everything that happens is blasted all of a sudden, right? But what would happen if you didn't have the TV or your phone for a couple of days? Wouldn't it be wonderful? Be peaceful? Yeah. You guys that get to go off and camp for a while, if you've got a section of your campground that gets no cell coverage at all, and all you can do is just hear the sounds of the forest and maybe the waves of the lake coming up and stuff. Wouldn't it be nice just to not know everything else bad that's happening? Think of all the major events that happened and people wouldn't have known until they were told, right? People were in school when JFK was shot. People were in school when the Challenger exploded, right? Well, the news of that came pretty quickly, all right? Spread throughout. There was great sadness in both of those events when that happened. But over and over in our life, we'll find more and more occasions where when we're simply not aware of the bad things that happen, they don't affect us. That's how God protects us, I think, when we go to heaven. Oh, I just couldn't go to heaven if my parents aren't there. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've been studying with somebody, we start reading through the Bible, they start reading their own passages, and they say, but that's not what my parents believe. That's not how they believe. And they come to the realization that maybe my parents aren't in heaven. I'm not their judge. You're not their judge. You don't know for sure, but guess what? It's not your parents' faith that's going to get you to heaven. It's going to be your faith and understanding of God. So you go through this to the nth degree and look at this passage in particular, and you say, okay, let's assume that your parents are not in heaven. Where are they going to be? Well, they're going to be in torments. Okay? So why do they want you to go join them? That's the real question. See, they don't. You think they do because you long to be with them, but you don't realize the truth that Jesus is telling here, which is this man who was rich and in torments, he begins to think of the welfare of others, even though he knows he can't get even a drop of water's relief for himself. That is the torment, I think, that goes on. Others are going to come join me, and I can't do a thing to stop them. Okay? So I've used various tactics in the past. I've tried to say, well, you know, if your parents were in a burning house and they were about to die, would you go into the burning house and die with them? Well, no, I wouldn't do that. Well, why not? Why not? If your parents have already died inside of a burning house, would you wait for the firemen to put the house out, fire out, or would you just go run in and die with them? Well, there might be some people that would want to die. I don't know. But we're talking about eternity. And so in this passage, and this gives us a little bit of a whetter appetite maybe for tonight when the roll is caught up yonder. But I want us to always live in such a way that there should be no doubt whatsoever when people come to our celebration of life or memorial, no doubt whatsoever as far as where we're going, and also no doubt in our minds that we want others to join us in that good place. Not the bad place, but the good place. All right? So let's close with a prayer today. Our Father, we're so very thankful and grateful for this another gift from you this day. We pray that everything that we say and do today will help bring honor and glory to you. We pray that throughout our lifetimes it will always be a good influence on others to help them to know just how much you love us and how much you've prepared eternity for us. Help us always to trust you, to take what you tell us and to know that with assurance, and to not worry about the things that you have not told us, because that's your secret. Help us this afternoon to be safe in our journeys. Help us to come back again at 5 o'clock tonight for worship. These things we ask through your Son, Jesus. Amen. Thank you very much.